Welcome to Atlantic Street Center's Family Resource Center. We are about to have a ballot party. So to start this off, we're going to be talking about Initiative 1631. This was initially scheduled for 7:30. So the person who is nay on 1631 is not here because this was initially scheduled for 7:30. Due to circumstances, we had to move it up to 6 o'clock. And so Katie Dong, who was scheduled to be the moderator, is here. From God Green, who is yes on 1631, is here. So we're going to work this out so that you still hear both sides of the issue. Right now, Katie Dong is going to moderate, and we're going to have a discussion with Hodan about Initiative 1631. Here's the deal. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening in. At the end of the day, these initiatives can be confusing. This is an opportunity for you to ask questions as well, those of you who are here in the audience. And those of you who are watching on Facebook Live, if you have a question that you'd like to ask, we'll ask that as well. Now is the time to find out how these issues impact your community, how they impact you personally, and what this means for your future. Welcome to Atlantic Street Center's Ballot Party. Get ready to get information so that you can be an informed voter. So those of you in here, everybody sitting, we're going to listen patiently. But just for the folks who are listening and watching on our YouTube channel and our Facebook channel and our live stream on the radio all over the world, on the count of 3, just to get energized, can I have everybody in here make some noise? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. And that is the energy that comes from this community when we talk about having an informed voter base. So we are about to start. These are the rules. And since again, and I want to make sure that we know this, the reason why the nay person is not here is because this was originally scheduled for 7:30. So we're going to make this work so that you still hear the nay side. Our yes person had to leave at 6:30. And so we wanted to make sure that we got this information, and part of making sure that we respond to the needs of the community is being flexible and adaptable. And we're glad to make this happen. So we are about to begin. Here's the deal. You'll get a 2-minute opening statement. After that 2-minute opening statement, you'll get questions. You'll get 2 minutes to give the answer. There is no rebuttal period. We're going to cut this a little bit short because later on we're going to have to do no on 1631 as well, just to make sure that we give everybody an opportunity to hear both sides of the issue. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to Katie Dong, who is our moderator. Katie is also the youth organizer for OneAmerica. And yes, on 1631 is Hodan Hassan from Got Green. We'll start, Katie, with you, and Hodan, you will be ready to make your 2-minute opening statement. Remember that there is a timer, and we're ready to go. Katie, take it from here.
Okay, thank you so much, Tony, and everyone who is here tuning in person. We are so happy you all could join us and learn more about issues that will be impacting our community. So we're going to start with your 2-minute opening statement.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hodan Hassan. I am the climate justice organizer at Got Green. And I'm here to tell you all about Initiative 1631. I don't know what you all know about it, so I'll just start from the beginning, and then hopefully I'll answer your questions. So Initiative 1631 is a ballot measure that have been worked on for the past 4 or 5 years, even before I got to Got Green and got into the climate activism world. And it is an initiative that it puts a fee on carbon emissions. And that money that comes from that fee that the polluters will pay will go into creating jobs and opportunities for communities who are frontline communities. And with frontline communities, people who live next to these polluting industries. So folks who are right next to a polluting industry, people like our siblings from the native tribes, communities of color, and for the people who will be transitioning out of the fossil fuel industry into the clean, green economy. I think I'll stop there in case the questions prompt me some more. So let's go into your questions.
Great, thank you. Okay, so for our first question, can you say a little bit more about why this issue is important to you personally?
Personally, this initiative is important to me, and this initiative and climate justice in general is important to me because as a young Black person in America, I didn't really understand climate change the way it impacts me before I got to Got Green and before working on this initiative. I always thought it to just be ice caps melting, polar bears dying, and none of it having to do with me. But I learned that the people who look like me, who live next to these polluting industries, and who have been throughout history mistreated, disenfranchised, and purposely placed next to these polluting industries, to be at the center of an initiative like this, right? So when we were putting this together, it was a big, broad coalition, the largest coalition in Washington state history, and that included people of color, people who are in the business, labor, and other climate activists, and big climate organizations coming together to come up with one initiative. And that's why it's important to me, because it's the voices of my people, the voices of people who are most impacted by climate change, and who don't see any of the benefits.
Thank you for talking a little bit about your story. So for the second question, can you say more about how this initiative will successfully or unsuccessfully address climate change? Who will be held accountable, and how will they be held accountable?
So this initiative successfully gets us started. I don't want to say like solve climate change, because that is a broader issue, and this is a step one towards that goal of making the earth livable and continuing to keep the earth livable for many generations to come. But this initiative specifically targets carbon emissions, which is what is warming up the planet, and it is going to hold the polluting industries accountable by making them pay money, because the way you hurt industries that are focused on making money off the people is you hurt them where they hurt most, which is their pockets. So we're making sure that they're paying for our suffering and the suffering that they're putting on the planet.
Great, thank you. So earlier you mentioned that this will be impacting communities who are at the front lines, is that right? So how will this initiative impact our community here, communities of color, most impacted communities, young people, like here at Atlantic Street Center, and by class, etc.?
This initiative, when we pass it, will generate close to 1.1.2. Let's round down rather, and just say $1 billion a year. And that money will be broken down to different sections, right? So a part of that money will go towards clean water and forests to make sure that the planet itself is like getting healthier, right? So creating more trees and planting more trees and making sure that we can still breathe. So that's one pile. Another pile that I think is the one that's super important to me too, but another pile that's really important to me is the one that will be set aside for communities of color. And that could look like people who are folks of color, who are working families, who are in the fossil fuel industry, like working in those factories or whatever else, to get job training and to move into the cleaner, green economy. Another is to create, like, if folks are like having, what am I trying to say? Give me 1 second. Yeah, I think that's it. And then another, I think that's out of that same money that's going towards communities of color, will also like support people who are, I said, transitioning and cleaning up polluted sites, and then giving some autonomy to our tribal families and Native folks to take care of the reservations in their communities, but autonomy over that money because they are sovereign nations.
Thank you. So you mentioned reinvesting in the community, jobs. So let's talk more about costs. How will this initiative impact our economy, and specifically, how will it impact the jobs and small business owners?
This is meant to be a fee on big polluting industries. I don't want to lie to you and say that, because I don't know if there's any like small, because it has to be like a number of emissions that you're creating, and none of the small businesses are creating that amount of carbon. I will also get back to you on that in case I'm not totally clear on that. So that is who is going to be, the big companies are going to be the most impacted. I'm not an economist, so I can't really tell you how that's going to change our economy, but I can imagine having $1 billion to clean up, clean up our earth, have ability for communities to transition from the fossil fuel industry, to give some of that money to the tribal communities, will create a booming society and a booming economy. And it's actually like the fossil fuel industry is actually dying down, so it's not like we're going to lose jobs. We're going to just be creating new jobs in a different, more green, healthier for us and the planet economy.
Thank you. So for our last question before your closing statement is, what else should our community know about this initiative? Why should they vote yes?
You should, our community, I'm a part of this community, we should vote for this initiative to send a message to people who are making money off of polluting our air. This is the most expensive ballot initiative campaign in Washington state history, because the oil companies, 99.5 of them out of the state, are putting over 30, I think the last time I checked was $31 million. And that's $1 million a day to kill this initiative and to continue polluting our air. And I think that says a lot about where their priorities lie. And I don't really trust anyone who lives in Texas and is dumping money into Washington state. Like, we're so far, what do you want? But they're scared because we're setting precedents and we're holding them accountable, and we're taking real steps towards cleaning our environment. And as a person of color, as a working person, as a poor person, I think it's really important for us to be able to take back our planet, set our priorities, and let them know that we're not messing around. And this is an initiative to do that. And I'm not going to tell you that this initiative is going to solve climate change, but I can tell you that it is one really big step towards that. And I think that's why you should vote for it. That's why I'm voting for it. And it definitely captures the essence of the largest coalition in Washington state history to get together and to do this. Yeah, and I think I might have just said my closing statement within that, but I can, and then if you all hear new information later that you're like, what's that about? I'm going to leave you I'm going to give to Katie a blog post done by Puget Sound Sage, who's a partner of ours at Got Green, and a part of this coalition that has a lot more answers. And if you need any more answers, you can go online, yes on 1631, or you can. I also leave my phone number. You all can call me and ask me, what is this about, right? Because I want to be 100% transparent on what's going on. So if you hear something later, you're like, I don't know if I really I don't know, I need to know more about that. You can let me know and I will give you the straight answers, and I'll leave this blog post here for you all. But it's like a printout, so you can't click on it. So I can also forward it if there's an email that I can give to someone at Atlantic Street Center. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to seeing what the world brings after this initiative. And good night.
Welcome back. And thank you, Haddad. And thank you, Katie, as well. You're listening to Rainieravenueradio.world, and this is a ballot party. Who all has their ballots in the room? Okay, I see a few hands in the room. Who in this room came here to get more information? Make some noise. So we have a couple of minutes here. Does anyone in the audience have a question? Again, the way that we're going to have to do this with 1631, the person who is on the other side was originally scheduled to be here at 7:30, so he's not here yet. So you heard one point of view, and we want to make sure that you hear the other point of view as well. But you've heard one side. If you have questions for Haddad, if you have questions for Katie, anybody have any questions? Everybody kind of feel like you got a grip on what this is? Anybody in the audience who would like to tell me how they feel about Initiative 1631? Okay. Well, that's gonna lead me to two things, and let's just be honest here, because these things are important. Does everyone feel that they understand what this initiative is going to do? If you do not completely understand what this initiative is going to do, raise your hand if you need some more information. Okay, there are folks here who don't quite get what's going on with 1631. We do have a couple minutes here. I know, Haddad, you kind of have to go. You were scheduled to be our 1634 person as well. But that's coming up. But if you can hang out, that would be cool. If you have to go, yeah.
Understand.
So there were some hands raised. Sometimes people are a little shy about getting on the microphone, so I'm not going to force people to get on the microphone. So Katie, if you would you talk a little bit about Initiative 1631? Are you comfortable doing that?
Sure.
Just from a general perspective of what folks are doing. And I can do that too and just read what it is, but if you're comfortable, so just so the folks can hear, maybe get a better understanding, because at the end of the day, that's what we want to have.
Thank you. So from my understanding, Initiative 1631 is a carbon tax a carbon fee, I'm so sorry, that holds big oil companies accountable. And so it takes the money and 50% goes to everyone, and the other 50% goes to communities who are most impacted, as Hodan had mentioned.
And so one of the questions that I've heard on the other side is, who's going to be responsible for this money, and how is that money going to be effectively managed? And that's one of the big things that I've heard on the other side, and that may be some confusion. So there's this money that's going to be collected, and this money is going to be collected mainly from major corporations. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to impact people individually. But then this money's collected, and at that point, who's in charge of it, and where does this money go? One of the against things is that there is nothing really in place to ensure the safety of what happens with taxpayer money. Do you guys know where this money's going? Do you want to know where this money's going?
Yes.
Well, let's see if we can find out.
Okay, so this money will be coming from big polluting industries. It will be going into the state legislature, right? The people who are elected. But there will be a board, an appointed board, that will make recommendation to the legislator on what to do with that money. The people who have a final say are obviously the legislature. What you have heard in commercials and ads.
Well, I'm going to stop you right there,
Okay.
because I just want the facts.
That's
So what you heard is there is money going to be collected. There is a board that's going to be appointed. It has not been done yet. Who's on that board? Who decides about where this happened? And then where does this money go when it is collected, what is it going to be used for? Again, these are your tax dollars. The purpose of having this discussion is to get answers to your questions. And if you are here today, I want to make sure that you get answers to your questions.
Can I make a point
move on to the next initiative? I'm gonna let you go.
I just need to make a
there
point
wasn't
of
a no person.
clarification.
There wasn't a no person here, and so
I would like to just make just a little bit of clarification.
Yeah.
One, that money will be coming as a fee on big polluters. So that money should be coming from the polluting industries. Two, the board will be appointed by the governor, which is an elected person that we as the people have elected. And the money and who gets to decide what to do, while people who are on that board, who will be from tribes, who will be from labor unions, who will be from communities of color, will make recommendation on what to do with that money, the final point and the final decision lie with people that you've elected in the legislature. And I did want to make that clarification.
Thank you, Haddad. Anybody, is that a little clearer now? Anybody else have any questions that they would like to ask? Yes, sir. Here, I'm gonna come back here so we can hear you.
Hi. So I know that one sticking point for people, and like Katie, you corrected her when she said that it was a carbon tax, and you said no, it's a carbon fee, and I think that's one confusion point for a lot of people. So if you could just clarify the difference between a carbon tax and a carbon fee, and also sort of speak more to Tony's point about how he's calling them your tax dollars, and you're saying no, they're coming from big polluters. So if you could just kind of clarify those differences there, I think that might help.
And your name is?
Gabriel.
They're wondering where the money's coming from. Is it from the big polluters or is it from the citizens?
Thank you for your question. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you I know everything about this initiative. I'm not sure about the particular. I know there is a difference, and there is a reason why it is a fee and not a tax. And then parts of your question, so I don't know that one. I can clarify and I can come back and let you all know. And what was your second part of that? That money will be coming from the polluters who are paying the fee. It's not correct. Yeah, it's not tax dollars. Yes.
Here, let me bring you a microphone. Let me
Yes.
bring you a microphone.
What I'm getting from it is basically we're having the option to vote to make a choice to hold bigger corporations liable for polluting the world, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
and another thing I'm getting from it is we can vote on it, and if it passes, if it does, there's going to be a large amount of money that's going to be somewhere for someone to claim for something. We don't know that yet, right? We don't know who's over the money because we haven't voted on that. And that's what worries me. We always do things like that, and then there's fees. It doesn't come from us. We're not taxed for it necessarily. Sometimes it feels like we never know how the money is used, and sometimes it seems like the money is not used properly. So I don't know, but I'm hoping that won't be the case. But that's the big what if. If we vote on it, we vote on it. If it passes, it passes. But where is the money really going to go, and is it going to end up back to the corporation for some strange reason, some little loophole or something like that? So those are the fine details that I'd like to know, like a follow-up. Like if this passes and these corporations are being held responsible, how are we going to follow up to see where this money is really going? Is it going to education? Because it needs to. There's a whole bunch of places where it could go. Where is it going to go? And I think I heard you say something about what tribal or
Native communities.
What is that? Okay, explain that to me. Well, I came in late, so I don't know what you were talking about.
You brought up very valid questions and concerns. Thank you so much. coming and for asking questions. This money will it's gonna go into the government, right? So the board that you've been hearing is like, who knows who's gonna do what with this money? You can't just collect money and then like it goes nowhere, or like random people have access to it. Like it's not like that, right? So there will be a board, right, that will be appointed by elected officials that will make recommendations on how to use this money, right? And this money has already been like broken down to different pots, right? One pot's for clean air and water and like planet stuff. Another for communities who are most impacted by these pollutions, including Native communities. So tribes are, they're one of the groups that are most impacted by this. I mean, I'm not a Native person, so I won't be speaking on it.
I don't know a lot. I can tell you what I hear. It seems like, well, from what my experience and from what I hear, the tribal communities and the Native communities do get certain privileges, tax breaks, monies. I mean, don't they?
No, here's the thing though, not nearly enough. And we're not like, I wish I could go into like, no, everybody knows the history.
Rubbed me the wrong way when I heard that, because there's not the only, they're not suffering like a lot of communities are suffering. There's a lot of
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
A lot of other communities suffering. So when I heard,
but here's the thing, we're not going to pray up
that, I was like, wow, because I feel like the tribal and the Native community do get a lot of perks.
Okay, I'm not a Native. Let me just say real quick.
I'll give you a minute to answer that, to respond to that, because then we're going to have to move on. Okay. But this is the purpose of having this discussion. This is beautiful. This is wonderful. Go ahead, Haddad.
I don't want to, like, I don't know where you got that information from, but when you really think about history, this is like an entire group of people that over like 80% of the population were killed so the United States can exist, right? So when you just like take that history into context, people lost their language, lost their land, lost people, lost heritage. Like there were Indian schools where people would like, first of all, calling them Indians was like hella racist. And then put them in schools to like cut off their hair and take everything from them. So whatever like you think they're getting back is nearly not enough what this country owes them. And there's a lot of people, and that is,
okay.
There's a lot of people who are doing that, but we're not going to play oppression Olympics. This money will go into communities of color, and you and I can talk.
So what I don't want it to do is turn into an argument, but we do want to have a discussion. You guys are okay with this, right? These are some of the things that need to be talked about. We only have a limited amount of time, and that was wonderful. We did not have the no person here. And so that's why these questions got brought up. And again, it is wonderful. And for those of you who are also watching, I'm sure that you're seeing, these are some of the questions that come up from people. And these are some of the questions that need to be answered. And we do have someone here from the yes side. And I want to thank you, Haddad, for being here. Even though we had to schedule you early, again, this was scheduled for later. So I want to make sure to say that so that you got your word in, because we're going to get his word in too. We wanted to make sure. Is Brandon here? From 1634? It's Brandon, right? Or who we have next? Well, we definitely want to have Tracy and Juan come up to the table. Is that where we're at now? Or is it, are you Sarah?
And who's for and who's against?
Okay. Let me see here. If we have, yeah, I know I'm trying to, I want to make sure that we get as much in, but I don't want to make it lopsided. Who's next?
Brandon with 1634 is about 5 minutes away.
Okay, and what about 1639?
Two people. What is happening?
He's on his way. He wants the main Atlantic Street Center address.
Okay, we got a couple of people who couldn't exactly find us. They're on their way. Again, we want to make sure you get your information. That gives us a little more time. So in the meantime, if we can have Tracy and Juan come up here. Thank y'all for being here. And thank you again, Katie. Give them a round of applause, please.
Can I have
because on the other hand, you know, Haddad has to stand up here and take these questions too.
Yeah, I can like be on the corner, but I also don't want to interrupt other people.
So we had you scheduled for 1634 as well.
2?
Vic
Lord. Okay,
had you
I'll
scheduled
sit
for
here, too.
1634. So Tracy, come on and have a seat. Juan, come have a seat.
Or should I?
And Juan, did you get your name tag?
And are you just like moderators? What is happening? Yes. For no on. Wait, which one? Which initiative? 34 or 31?
Welcome to Rainieravenueradio.world. And once again, Karen, we're waiting on Brandon, who's on his way, correct? Brandon is on his way. So we're going to be talking about Initiative 1634, and they're calling this thing the food tax. All right?
It's good.
Okay. So we'll find out a little bit more about Initiative 1634 here in a second. But I want to talk about Atlantic Street Center right now, because this is where we're at. And this is the Family Resource Center. Atlantic Street Center provides a number of wraparound services to our community. Is Michelle here, or can I talk to somebody from Atlantic Street Center? Come on up here. And why don't you introduce yourself and then tell us who Atlantic Street Center is? Okay. And on Rainier Avenue Radio, you can hear a number of different programs. And what we try to make sure that we do is stay involved and engaged in the community. We simply call ourselves a mirror. We reflect what's going on in the community. So if you like it, that's what it is. If you don't like it, that's just what it is. So are you ready? You ready now? Well, come on over here. And your name, and there's Michelle. Michelle, come on over here too. So we'll talk to both of you. And why don't you tell us, because we got a couple minutes here before our next person, who you are, and then I want you to also tell us a little bit about the next Atlantic Street Center.
Well, my name is Tamara Cook. I am the current program manager for our Family Resource Center. That's where you all are at right now. We have 4 core programs. We have family support. We have mental health counseling. We have youth development. And we have a parent-child home program, the early learning program. And so, and under our 4 core programs, we have programs under that as well. I am going to let Michelle Mitchell-Brannon speak. She's been here and she's been around for a while. I've been here for 12 years, and I think we match. Oh, let me pass the mic.
Okay. Michelle Mitchell-Brannon, and I am the program, I am the Youth, Young Adults, and Education Program Manager here at Atlantic Street Center. And like Tamara said, we've been here, we came together 12 years ago, and I fell in love with this place and what we do for the community, and I've been here ever since. So I just wanted to say, I'm so glad that you guys came out tonight to get educated, learn about the things that are going to plague our communities, our lives, our future, our children. And so thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed the food, and we look forward to some more information and some more these debates. Got a little hot in here. Amen. I like that. Yeah, sometimes you got to just peek just a little bit, right? Because we're passionate about what we believe in our communities and for our families. So again, thank you guys for coming. And I'm going to pass this microphone right on over.
All right. Now, with that, as I try to keep on track, there was an opportunity for a comment here. And I wanted to make sure that this person had an opportunity to express her opinion. So if you wouldn't mind telling us who you are and then telling us what it is that you wanted to discuss or talk about or share.
Everyone, my name is Magana. I'm an organizer in South King County. I just wanted to clarify really quick earlier when there was a question around where does the money go that is taxed from the big businesses and corporations. That money goes back into the community. Can you hear me back there? I think you're kind of telling me something into the mic. Okay. And so the organization I work for, Fuse Washington, does intensive research on all of the initiatives that are going to be on the ballot for this November election. And so that fee will be used to create local jobs by investing in clean energy, healthy forests, and clean water. So 1631 will create an estimate 40,000 jobs, of course, by investing in water, forestry projects, because we had all of those fires just this past summer that happened, not just in Washington State, but all over the nation. Let me see, forestry projects, energy efficiency, and clean. How this money is allocated, which communities it goes to will look different. Okay, 15 seconds, just really quick. It'll look different in every community. So energy efficiency upgrades for our homes and businesses to keeping our forests clean. So that's kind of the big spectrum of where the money is going in the community. So it doesn't go back to the corporations, it's to invest in the community. I just wanted to clarify that for everyone.
Okay, now, are you a yes 1631 person? Okay. Okay, that's why we are here. That's why we invited people who are passionate about the things that we're going to be voting about. This is and remember, each one of these persons that's speaking that has an opinion on how they feel, you also have that same vote. Each one of you has that same vote and that same ability to make a difference in the future. And so when they say vote like your future depends on it, that's what they mean. So are we waiting on Brandon still? We're still, okay. We're still waiting on Brandon. And I'd like to thank DJ Understanding for the nice music in the background. And I can tell you a little bit more about Rainier Avenue Radio. And at that point, we might have to just move on to something else. So if you're unfamiliar with Rainier Avenue Radio, we're a community radio station that broadcasts in the interest of Southeast Seattle. We've got two buildings right down on Rainier, 5256, right in Columbia City. And we're very excited to say that, now some of you may not know this, is if you drive by, there's two little buildings there, a blue one and a building next to it. This is the whole point about voting on stuff. All of that stuff is going to be torn down, okay? All of that stuff between 42nd Avenue, on Rainier Avenue and 39th is going to be torn down and turned into a 7-story condominiums, all right? So if you didn't know that, this is another reason why you should be aware of how politics impact your life. That's going to change the scope of everything. It's happening. It's something that's going to come now. I'm saying that we are also going to be located as Rainier Avenue Radio right there on Rainier Avenue. We've made a partnership with PSW, the real estate company, and they were very concerned about making sure that even though they're doing what they're doing, that there was some interest in maintaining the culture of the neighborhood. And so as Rainier Avenue Radio, we're happy to say that we're going to have a space right there on front in that new establishment, that 7-story building. That deserves a round of applause. We worked hard for that. But the reason it is because of what we are doing in the community, and that means what you are doing in the community. Because again, we simply reflect the things that are going on in the community. We shine a spotlight and amplify the diverse voices that emerge from this community. A lot of times when you hear about South Seattle in another neighborhood, it's on somebody's police blotter. It's somebody got shot, somebody, and as you all know who live in this community, every single day, there are amazing people and amazing things going on in this neighborhood. And on our programming on Rainieravenueradio.world, we have over 50 programs by people, community. 50 different people have come on this radio station to voice their opinion about a number of different subjects, whether it be in talk, music, sports. We have programs in foreign languages. We have youth programming, and you and all of you can have a program on our radio station as well. Thank you. You've heard some of the discussion, and if you would like to have your voice heard, you're free to do that. We'll provide you with a producer, we'll provide you with an engineer, we'll provide you with the station, we'll provide you with the platform. We want to hear the voices of Southeast Seattle on the air. Whatever you think, especially in these critical times, it's important to get ahead of the games. When you have federal policies changing and the societal times changing, a lot of times you don't know what's really going on, but the people who are being impacted and affected are dealing with whatever it is that they're dealing with. And so that's our goal, to make sure that your voices are amplified and your concerns are met, your challenges, your barriers are something that will be, again, not hidden but visible. So that's a little bit about Rainieravenueradio.world and what we do. We broadcast high school sports as well, football games, basketball games, lacrosse, women's, men's. And so our goal is just to be your community radio station. And I know that I have Juan Cotto here, who's here for this next debate, who is part of Rainier Avenue Radio. He does a show called NYC. He also does play-by-play for us. And he's a wonderful person to have in the community. And he's one of our moderators today. And then also Tracy Klinkroff is here, who does a number of different things and is passionate about making sure that those communities that have been marginalized, have their opportunities for equity and access. And it's another Chick Chat. Is that tell me a little bit about the, yeah. Tim.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi. Yes, I have a company called Chick Chat. Ooh, I get really loud all of a sudden. And the power of she, and it's all about giving exposure to women-owned businesses so that we purchase more of our products and services from women-owned businesses to lessen the gender wage gap, which is even larger for women of color.
So, Brandon's still not here? All right, said a couple more minutes. Juan.
Yes, sir.
Let's find out a little bit about you, Mr. Cotto.
Well, Tony B.
I can do it myself, but
yes.
Let's hear the voice that we hear on Rainier Avenue.
I am a lifelong Seattleite. I am an O'Day High School graduate and grew up just right up the street from here. Yeah, the Fighting Irish. I grew up in, technically it's called Skyway, but it was a Seattle neighborhood. We had a Seattle zip code, and it's always nice to come back here to the south end. Although I live down in Leschi, so it's not like I went too far. Currently, I am the manager of social impact at Bloodworks Northwest. After spending 12 years as the manager of community outreach and community engagement, and working with Bender, you have to throw some shade at Bender over there at Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research.
Is that Bender over there?
That's Bender. That is Dr. Bender.
Been a long time. Good to have you here.
Good to see Bender.
And I know
here,
I'm Tim, but I remember Dr. Bender participating when we had a wonderful event and had a discussion about health disparities. We talked about a number of different issues.
He's one of the foremost experts in the world, not in the country, not in the state, in the region. He's one of the foremost experts in the world on sickle cell disease.
And there we go. And that's what I was going to bring up right there. Hey, Dr. Bender, good to see you again. Yeah.
So it's a pleasure to be here tonight at Atlantic Street Center.
So thank you, Juan, and thank you, Tracy. And again, we got 2 minutes to kill here. Okay, maybe that's not the right choice of words. Does anyone in the audience have something, and it doesn't matter what it is, that you want to say? It could be about the process. It could be about the initiatives. It could be about. Okay, Tracy, you have your own mic.
I forgot about that. I just think it's interesting. I'm not going to say how I voted on anything because I've already voted, but I always think it's interesting for us to look at and research where the contributions come from for or against the initiatives.
Okay.
And then you make a decision.
Yes, Doc. Go ahead. We've got time now.
I would like to have a spot on the radio. So you said earlier that everybody from South Seattle can be a part. So we could talk later. I'm gonna find y'all. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, how about that? We're gonna have 51 shows created by members of our community, and it really is that simple, Haddad. You go to our website and it says show application. You fill that out. It helps you kind of get in mind what you want to do. It'll ask you questions like, how long do you want your show to be? 30 minutes, 60 minutes, an hour, 2 hours? How would you like the show to run? Would you like it to be once a week? Would you like it to be twice a month? Would you like it to be once a month? Would you like it to be twice a week? You fill out those questions. We'll ask if you need a producer, if you've ever done this before. If you'd like training, we provide you with training. I'm going to brag a little bit here about Creative Arts Digital Media Academy and Rainier Avenue Radio. We've graduated over 300 students. For the last 3 years, every summer, we've operated a math and coding program at the Northwest African Museum. And thank you. And also recently at Meany Middle School. We're currently teaching at Washington Middle School. We've taught at Mercer Middle School. We've taught at Rainier Beach High School. We've taught at Franklin High School, Rainier Community Center, Rainier Vista Boys Club. And we give folks 21st century job skills. We teach them everything from communications and journalism to app design, web design, film, photography, understanding the analytics behind social media. And everybody that comes through our class, one of the projects they have is to build a business. And as a team, they have to build a website and build a business. So we're really excited about what we do. And that's just something that we do beyond being a radio station. So just kind of had to get that plug in there for what we do. So anyway, if you go to the website, fill out that application, it won't be long before, and submit it. It won't be long before someone gets in touch with you to talk to you about getting you on the air. And from that point, we try to fast forward you. And so if you decide that you would like to take classes or you need instruction, we'll teach you more about production. We'll teach you about engineering. We'll teach you about broadcast. Or if you just say, I just want to get on the microphone, then we'll let you get on the microphone and you get to say whatever you want to say.
And may I add something to that? You invited me to do baseball last spring, and I came and we did some baseball games, and we've done some football games together and worked with James Street back there. One thing I want to add to all of you just said, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of fun to come and to provide your opinions and to hear different people in the community about different issues that are going on in our community, and it's been an awful lot of fun to do that. So it's not as daunting as it seems. Just to let everyone know, we are waiting for the person who is
okay. While we're doing this,
yeah, okay.
I'm gonna. Where's Katie? Come here. I'm gonna reorg a little bit.
Okay.
Come on. No, come on up here, because we had a reschedule, and so since Brandon isn't here, I'm gonna move a little bit because Stephanie is here, who is no on 1630. No, I'm yes. You're yes. Yeah. Oh, you were both booked in the same. Oh, that's right. So we're still waiting on. Yeah, yeah. 31? We had two folks here from 1631, and it was scheduled to go at a later time. So we still have Dan coming from 1631. So we're going to figure out how to make this happen, which was kind of a hot button issue anyway. You're listening to Rainieravenueradio.world. I guess we're still waiting on Brandon to get here. And in the meantime,
gentleman has a question.
Again, we have Gabriel. You want to come up here? You want me to follow you back there? Here you go.
Hi, me again. I just did a little bit of light research into the question that I asked earlier that Haddad did not have an answer for. So I thought I'd share it with you all about the distinction between a carbon tax and a carbon fee for I-1631, which most of us think of as a carbon tax. But according to the actual legislation, it's a fee, and this does make a difference. The main central point is just that if it were a carbon tax, then technically the legislature could kind of spend the money however they wanted to. They could, throw it towards schools, or they could throw it towards roads or whatnot. That's what a tax would officially be designated as. Whereas by calling it a carbon fee and legislating it as a carbon fee, that means that it has to go towards the actual, climate-related problems and solutions for those issues as laid out in the legislation. So, important distinction, I think. And yeah, just since I keep forgetting the answer to that question myself, I looked it up again. Thought I'd share it with you. So,
thank you. We're gonna get the no side to that too. here in a bit. We're gonna do what we can to make sure. Like I said, one of the things is being flexible and being nimble. When it comes to getting information out there, sometimes that's difficult to do. But as you can see, we're not playing. We're gonna get y'all some information tonight. You know, whenever these folks get here, we'll wait them out.
Ballots in and sent there. Also, we have some people who are making up their minds this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks like we have some
We
folks
got our
making
ballot right
up
in
their
our hand.
minds, and we've got a ballot right here waiting to be filled out, waiting for some answers. And that's exactly what we want to do. Go ahead, understanding. Well, let's see. Dan? Okay, Dan. Come on over here, Dan. You are no 1631. Please have a seat. Katie, would you come back up here, Katie? We're going to reorganize. And Haddad, would you wait for a second? And Katie, if we can do kind of similar thing that we did with Haddad, we will make this happen. I'm sorry. Come on, Dan. Hey, Dan. I want to make sure that we have a balanced discussion. So what's going on right now? And where's Katie at? Come on over, have a seat. So what went on earlier, as you said, was Haddad was here for yes, and it was scheduled to be at 7:30. Dan was not here yet, and I wanted to make sure we have equal time. We also have another yes person here, but I'm going to give the bulk of this time to Dan to answer questions concerning no on 1631. Now, you've heard a lot of commentary about yes on 1631. It is now an opportunity to hear the other side of that discussion. So again, Katie, thank you for staying here. Dan, why don't you tell us who you are to start with? And the way this works, it would have worked before, would have been a debate, was you would have had 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then 2 minutes to ask questions, and then there would have been a rebuttal period here. And so we do have another yes person here right now. Yes is trying to turn out tonight. So, and so Stephanie, I'm going to give you some opportunities, but again, the bulk of the time I'm going to give to Dan because Haddad was here earlier. And so Katie, we're going to start again, but Dan, I'd like, since we haven't done this and I don't have information, tell us, and why don't you just grab that mic right there and quickly, and this is not your opening statement, but just tell us who you are and brief background information on who you are, not necessarily why you're doing this, but who you are.
Okay. So I am a consultant that's worked in public policy issues for about almost 40 years now. And I am an outreach member, team member for the No on 1631 campaign.
All right. And here we go. We've heard yes. It is time to hear from no on 1631. Katie, it's on you.
All right. Thank you all for your patience and for sticking with us. Dan, welcome.
Thank you.
If you could please start with your opening statement about no for 1631.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm so sorry that my schedule didn't quite match up with yours, but I'm glad to be here, and I hope that I can share some information that you'll find useful tonight. The ballot title for 1631 says that it's going to charge pollution fees on sources of greenhouse gas pollution. But the truth is, 8 of the 12 largest carbon emitters in the state will be exempt from Initiative 1631's carbon fee. There's a study that shows, an economic study, full economic study that shows that in the end, only about 60% of the carbon emissions produced in the state will actually be covered by the initiative. That other 40% outside of it, meaning the rest of us pay the bill for those emissions that are not covered. Initiative 1631 is a cash cow. It will generate about $2.3 billion over the first 5 years of its existence. And it will potentially have a gas tax, gas price increase of about 14 cents per gallon associated with it in the first year. And over 15 years to 2035, that's estimated to be something a little more than 57 cents impact on gas prices. The accountability and governance in 1631 is of real concern to us in that it is run by a 15-member unelected board, political appointees that can make decisions that will benefit their constituencies or others, but not necessarily the best decisions to reduce carbon. In fact, there's a perverse incentive in the initiative that if they do a poor job of reducing carbon emissions and we don't meet our goals, that the fee will actually continue longer, which seems to be a kind of a backwards way to develop a proposal like this. And finally, I would just say that the proponents say that the initiative will create 40,000 jobs. There's an independent economic study that shows that it will cost the equivalent of 9,000 jobs initially and about 21,000 jobs over the 15 years of its existence. So with that, I'll conclude my opening statement. Thank you.
Great. Again, Dan, thank you so much for...
Interrupt you. I just want to make sure folks heard this. On the one hand, one side says it's going to create 40,000 jobs. On the other hand, you just say it's going to cost jobs. Again, just wanted to make sure and reiterate that point for everyone. Katie.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. That's really important. So thank you for that overview of No on 1631. Can you now speak to why this initiative is personally important to you?
So I'm a parent and a grandparent, and actually next spring I'll be a great-grandparent, if you can believe it. I'm really excited about that. I've lived here all of my life, and it is important to me that we regulate carbon emissions over time, but it's important to me that we do it right. There's never a good time for a bad solution, and 1631 as it's drafted is a bad solution to carbon emission control.
Thank you. So for our second question, and again, everyone who is here tuning in, these are the exact same questions that I asked to Hadan from Got Green from earlier in this evening. So our second question will be, how will this initiative successfully or unsuccessfully address climate change? Who will be held accountable, and how will they be held accountable?
Thank you. One of the weaknesses of the initiative is that there is no accountability. There's no requirement that greenhouse gases actually be reduced. They will spend a lot of money, $30 billion over 15 years, but there's no requirement, there's no measurement, there's no accountability associated with the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that occur as a result of 1631. It's just not in there. And the result will be we'll spend $30 billion and probably only touch about 7% of the carbon emissions in the state by that time.
Thank you. So you earlier talked about jobs and everything. So how will this initiative impact our community, especially communities of color, most impacted communities, young people, like people in this room, and people of every class, et cetera?
Great. Thank you for the question. Every citizen in the state of Washington will be impacted by Initiative 1631. One of the reasons why the coalition that I'm working with, that is 160,000 people strong, including a number of unions, primarily craftsmen, the trades unions, who have expressed the same concerns that I'm expressing to you tonight, that jobs will be lost because construction jobs will be cut off by the initiative, and that will have a huge impact on them as well. The the fee in Initiative 1631 is a regressive fee that will affect people that have less annual income at a much greater percentage than it will those that are of higher income. That is a huge concern for us. In fact, the initiative is estimated to cost an average family about $440 in the first year. In over 15 years, up to about $990. And that's an independent study. And even if my number is a little bit wrong, which I do not think it is, I can defend it. You still have to be concerned about that kind of impact on the family.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm gonna go back a little bit. I probably don't need the mic. Okay.
And tell us who you are, too.
My name is Lalitha Williams, and I work as a homeless prevention case manager. When I'm talking to you as a parent, you talk about losing. One side says we gained 30,000 jobs or 40,000 jobs, I don't know. And you say we would lose 9,000 jobs. Who holds those jobs anyway? Does my community hold those jobs?
In general, I would say that anyone who is a member, a laborer, would have something at stake if this initiative passes, because those jobs will be in harm's way.
Can I also respond to questions?
Tony?
Uh-oh, there we go. I'm sorry. Did you want to continue to take questions, or did you want to finish your? If you do, I would like to get to the same questions that Hodad did, and we can take the questions.
Okay, and then we'll have time for questions and a rebuttal afterwards.
Yep.
Okay. So you, again, have been talking about these costs, so let's keep talking about that. Please say more about how this initiative will impact our community, how will it impact jobs, and say, please, a little bit more about small business owners.
Well, the initiative will essentially attach a fee on carbon emissions. So when you purchase gasoline or diesel for your vehicle, you will pay more because of the initiative. When you turn the thermostat in your home up, electricity or the natural gas that powers that home heat, you'll also pay for the electricity to runs your lights. That's how it's designed. Those costs would be passed on to materials or services, and it will have a huge impact, potentially a huge impact on low-income communities, all people, but especially low-income communities. This is definitely the definition of a regressive proposal.
Thank you, Dan. So for your closing statement, please talk a little bit about what else should our community know about this initiative.
Well, thank you. And thank you again for being here. And I think there are three things that I would like to share with you as I close. One is that we know that Initiative 1631 will be costly. The State Office of Financial Management estimated that the initiative will generate $2.3 billion over the first 5 years of its existence. We know that it'll affect you every time you buy a gallon of gas by at least 14 cents in the beginning and 57.7 cents 15 years out, if the estimates are correct, which we believe they are. We know that Initiative 1631 is unfair. The exemptions written into the initiative actually take 40% of the carbon emissions that are out there and set them aside and exempt them from what all of us are going to pay as individuals and small businesses. And then this group of unelected members, 15 people that we don't have any control over by voting on them, will spend all this money on projects that they claim will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The result, seriously, is it's like handing them a blank check. And finally, the initiative would be ineffective in that it's really only probably touching the very tip of the surface of carbon emissions in the state, not significantly decreasing them, as the proponents have said. And it's just too big of a gamble. As I said in the beginning, there's no good time for a bad solution. And while there needs to be a carbon measure, this is not the right one. So I hope that we have the ability to continue a conversation following the election to figure out what the right way for Washington to move forward on carbon is.
Time. And wow, 1631. Again, if you are just tuning in, we did have a 1631 earlier. If you missed that conversation, that was yes on 1631. So we wanted to make sure that we gave Dan equal time. Did that help anybody in the room? Did that clarify anything? Cause you more confusion? More confusion. Initiative and how it's going to impact you.
Yes.
Okay. Stephanie, I know you just got here, and I would like to give you a 2-minute opportunity to rebut. We've heard from Haddad. I would like to hear you address some of the reasons that he says no, to maybe clear some of the water up for these folks about why it should be yes from your perspective. And you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. And my name is Stephanie Selt. I work for a nonprofit that helped write this initiative, but I'm here tonight as an individual, as a mom whose kids were getting sick when the air was really dirty this summer. And so that's the reason I'm doing this work. And I'm going to just try to quickly say a few points that you may have heard some of from Haddad before. But, you know, from the point of view of the people who wrote this initiative, there's a lot of misinformation that's being given out by the No campaign. This initiative will cover 80% of the fossil fuel pollution in the state. It covers a lot of it. You hear all kinds of weird numbers, and they're just not true. The costs are being put on fossil fuel distributors, okay? Petroleum distributors, natural gas distributors, and utilities if they're selling fossil fuel generated electricity. It's not on individuals. If they pass those costs down to us, which the No campaign says that they will as a matter of course, I think they should be accountable to their customers and to all of us for putting those costs on us, because they make billions of dollars of profits every year. And what we need is a sensible fee for pollution, which at the moment these companies can pollute for free. And that is not how we raise our kids to clean up their messes. This is something where we think it is a sensible first step to charge this fee. The investments are going to be spent on things that reduce the pollution, and the description you heard before about the fee is accurate. 70% of the money has to be going into reducing pollution, transit, solar, wind projects like that, as well as in our natural resources and in communities. And I'm sure that you heard before about how the majority of these investments, at least a third of the money, has to go into tangibly benefiting low-income communities, communities that are most impacted by pollution. And that is going to change who is able to access clean energy economy, which we need to do. The UN just put out a report very recently saying we have about 10 years to make some serious changes. And this initiative is a sensible first step to getting there. And the No campaign has put $31 million already into trying to stop it. We believe that's because they don't think they can pass these costs down to us. They just don't want to have their bottom line impacted.
Okay, time.
So
Dan,
vote
I'm going to
yes.
give you 1 minute, and then we'll take some audience questions. Dan, did you want to respond to that?
Thank you. You don't have to take my word for the impact that you're going to feel at the gas pump. Governor Inslee a couple of months ago stated that it's going to be 13 or 14 cents per gallon increase in gas costs. And why wouldn't those costs be passed on? I just don't know an economic model that would support a different approach. The initiative backers say 80% of the emissions will be covered. We believe it's 60%. But is 80% enough to be proud of? It just seems to me that that's a lot of big companies like aerospace companies, like other big heavy manufacturing companies that are totally let off the hook and exempt from the initiative. And the result is that you and I pay the bill.
Anybody have any questions from our audience? Just tell us who you are and what your question is.
My name is Chris. I live down here in the South End. I've got a two-part question. One, you all spent $30 million on ads and campaigning against this. How much of that are you putting into making sure that our kids can breathe and are getting help and healthcare for the asthma that the emissions that you all are putting in the air are causing? And the second part is you all are making billions of dollars in profits. How many of the CEOs of the companies of big oil are people of color or native people who are actually getting impacted? Because right now what I'm hearing is that the people in this room might actually get a say about what you all do. What's the price you're willing to pay to say you all should be healthy? You all should get to decide what those jobs look like and your kids should have a future. Because right now I'm saying, what I'm seeing is that you are putting profits above our communities. And then you have the nerve to say, we're going to raise the prices so you can keep your family warm. We're going to raise the prices so you can get to work. What profit level are you okay with our community suffering?
So, Chris, there's no way I'm going to be able to answer your question. I don't know the demographic of any industry executives and the like. So I just can't answer that question. This is a campaign that has attracted a lot of supporters. 160,000 people are on the No Coalition. It includes farmers. It includes small businesses. It includes a number of public utility districts. And it also includes a number of rural electric cooperatives that have taken positions against the initiative. So even if your concerns about oil have merit, and even though I can't answer them, why would all these other interests be coming alongside the campaign trying to get the word out? The reason the campaign is spending money is that the word would not have gotten out to all of you about the impact that you will feel in your home heating fuel, your electricity, your transportation fuel. And that's, so rather than argue about a campaign, let's argue about the words and what in the initiative and what they say, because that's what we're going to end up living with.
Stephanie, I'll give you 30 seconds because we're going to have to move on if you want to address it.
Absolutely. I just want to say that, again, to borrow some language here, you don't have to take my word for it. 1631 has been endorsed by over 400 organizations and businesses from across the state, by the Attorney General, the Governor, everyone from the Transit Riders Union and the grocery store union, UFCW 21, to Bill Gates. Everybody endorses this. The No campaign is 99.5% out-of-state oil money, and they don't want their profits impacted. They don't want to pay for their pollution. That's it. I'll cede the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. Please, a round of applause. They will be here. And if, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Stephanie, as well. Thank you, Dan, for making it here. Thank you, Katie, for doing this twice. Appreciate it. If we can get Brandon and Haddad up to the table, we're going to talk about Initiative 1634. That was 1631. Thank you for your patience and thank you for your questions about this initiative. And I hope, do you now have a better understanding of how this affects you? I see more positive head nods now. I hope what this shows is health. There is nothing wrong with healthy debate and healthy discussion and questions, and everyone has the opportunity to ask a question. And at the end of the day, you get to make your own decision. You get the opportunity to make a vote, one just like each of these people do. And so we are now going to move on to Initiative 1634, and our moderators for this discussion, Mr. Juan Cotto and Ms. Tracy Klinkroth. And I would like to give one of you one. You seem like you're chomping at the bit.
I was going to let Tracy take the lead. I talked to her earlier. So
okay, so what if you would like to start by giving a brief explanation, or I can read what's on the thing of 1634.
Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, just not the whole thing, just the initial little blurb that we get to see when you're voting. The part that when you read it, you say, should I vote, yes or no? So for those of you who have your ballots out there, open up your ballot. For those of you who have your ballots here, you got your ballot right here. Here, can I see that? James, I don't know if you can zoom in on this.
Tony.
Oh, we have that one. We have the other one. I'll make it
Tony.
Clear so we can. Oh, a little more. A little more.
Read it up there. Tony, this is Washington State Initiative number 1634. Initiative 1634 concerns taxation of certain items intended for human consumption. The measure would prohibit new or increased local taxes, fees, or assign assessments on raw or processed foods or beverages, with exceptions, or ingredients thereof, unless effective by January 15, 2018, or penalty applicable. Should this measure be enacted into law? Yes or no?
I don't have any idea what you just said.
I
I mean, I'm not that you weren't, but this is what you're voting on. So this is why we're having this debate. 1634, they call it the food tax. This is the way this is going to work. Moderators, please be very brief and concise with your questions so that we can continue to move on. You guys will be timed. You'll have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then you'll have questions thrown at you. You'll have an opportunity to answer that question. And then the other person will have a chance to rebut the answer to your question. And so I will be keeping it moving. We will keep on time, and then we'll try to keep it short enough so that we have questions from the audience afterwards. As you can kind of see, it goes at a brisk pace. And oh my God, what am I supposed to say when you do that? Don't throw things.
I asked for
because
that.
you
My
can
bad,
put somebody's
my bad.
eye out. Is that
My bad.
How
I
many
asked
times
for
did we
it.
hear that growing up?
I know that ends up being on.
But how many lives were lost?
But anyway, so we are now going to start our debate on Initiative 1634. Again, I would like to have an opportunity for both to have opening statements. I'm not choosing sides, and so I was going to flip a coin about who will go first. So I'm gonna flip a coin.
I'm fine going first.
You want to go first?
Sure.
Oh, I'll just flip a coin anyway.
All right.
Heads or tails?
Whatever it is.
Tails.
Nice. Thank you.
The affirmative will go first.
Okay. You will now go first.
Thank you,
All
brother.
right, you have an opportunity for opening statements. You have 2 minutes. Thanks, Brandon. And tell us who you are as well.
Yeah, so first off, thank you so much for having me. I think that it is so dope. I'm originally from Mississippi, and I've been living in Seattle for a few years now, and seeing so many people of color gathered together and participating in our civic responsibility is amazing for me, since so many people down south are being, pushed out of the voting booths, literally. So thank you for being here. I'm a teacher. I live here in Seattle. I actually used to live on the South End. Surprisingly, found a cheaper apartment in Capitol Hill, but I teach down in Federal Way, and every time I get to come back down here, I'm super excited about it. There's a lot of confusion about what I-1634 is and what it's not, right? So I-1634 is a measure to prevent local governments from raising taxes on groceries. That's it. In no way does I-1634 repeal the Seattle soda tax that passed last summer. In no way does it have any effect on the soda tax at all. In fact, I-1634 is much bigger than soda, and it sure is much bigger than Seattle. And so as a teacher down in Federal Way, I have kids every single day that show up hungry, that are experiencing homelessness, that are experiencing poverty. And we are already living in a state, one of the wealthiest states in this country, that has one of the most regressive tax structures. And I'm from Mississippi. We have a more progressive tax structure than Washington, and I think that that's embarrassing, right? So for me, this initiative isn't about soda. It's about making sure that that regressive tax structure doesn't continue to harm the families of the kids that I serve every single day. And I'm not the only one that thinks so. There are 1,400 other coalition members, including labor unions, small businesses, and even several local NAACP chapters that say that they have had enough of Washington State's regressive tax structure. This is about keeping Washington State affordable for the people who need it most. And that's why I'm here and advocating for this, not on behalf of anybody else, but except for my students who need it the most. Thank you. I am voting for I-1634, and I would like for you to do the same.
Is this it? Oh, sorry. Is this me? Hi. Me again. My name is Hodan. I am the climate justice organizer at Got Green. I just want to start by saying my coworker Tanika, who's been doing tremendous amount of work, who's the food access team at Got Green, can be here tonight. So I am substituting, and I hope to do her proud. Thank you so much for coming and for chatting. So we're voting no and urging everybody to vote no on 1634 because there's at the moment there's no plans for city governments or local governments to tax groceries, and your groceries, your chicken, your tomatoes will not be taxed. This is a response to the sweetened beverage tax that we passed, we being the city of Seattle, this recently, and this tax is meant to be a distribution tax. What that means is this is a tax on the soda companies, and they're choosing not to pay for it, right? So they're spending $67 billion to defeat this, this tax and make sure that no one else in Washington state can get a sugary beverage tax.
Did you say 67 billion with a B?
67 billion with a B.
That's the sugary.
You're spending 67
sorry.
billion to defeat? No, but
Yeah,
to defeat the initiative. I just wanted to clarify.
No, to make sure that we don't get, by we, I mean Washington State, doesn't, any other city in Washington State doesn't get a sweetened beverage tax, right? So we in Seattle have one, and it's not gonna get repealed, it's not gonna go away, but it is a tax on the soda companies that they're choosing to pass down to the consumers, right? So they can pay for it. They have money. They've been dumping money into this campaign and spreading lies, I think. And so let's just talk a little bit about where this money goes when people who buy sugary drinks in Seattle get taxed, right? So you get taxed and you buying soda, there's tax on it because the companies refuse to pay for it themselves. And what happens is that money goes into the city to pay for to pay for food security programs. So that people who are being impacted by the regressive tax can pay for food and things like that. Things like, to be continued.
There we go, time. So Tracy, I believe you're going to ask the first question. You're on.
Like what I said earlier is that I think it's interesting for us to know to follow the money. So can you each tell us who is contributing on the no side and the yes side? Who are the biggest contributors?
Hodad, we'll start with you since Brandon went first.
On our side, so the people who are voting no are Got Green and the Food Access Coalition, King County Coalition, Healthy King County Coalition, Seattle Healthy Kids Coalition, American Heart Association, Spokane City Council, Healthy Food America, and the Nutritionist First. I don't know what the dollar amount is. Is there? Yeah, the Healthy Kids Coalition is raising a little bit more than $23,000. The Delta Dental is $7,000. Childhood Obesity Prevention Coalition is $6,800. In-kind donations, Foundation for Healthy Generations, $6,000. American Cancer Society, $1,000. El Centro de la Raza, $1,000. That's where the money is coming from for this campaign. To vote no.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not gonna get up here and pretend that the several soda companies and the American Beverage Association are pouring a lot of money into this initiative, but I want you to think about it from this context, right? So it was already said that the soda companies are passing that tax on distribution down to the consumer. And the consumer, by and large, are low-income communities and communities of color. So whether this tax stays in place or not, the soda companies are not going to pay it. Now, what I want you to think about when you're about to bubble in that dot is just because for once a major corporation is pouring a lot of money into something that I feel is right, and to be clear, none of that money is going into my pocket. The only people that pay me are federal way public schools, and it's not nearly enough.
That's true.
But for once, when a major corporation pours a lot of money into a campaign, and we are going in the right direction of protecting families, then I welcome that, right? I think that we get caught up so much in this liberal, conservative idea about policy that before we even read it, we offline and make an opinion or decision based off of not completely accurate or completely thought out information. And I think that specifically for this initiative, that what we have to realize is that if we follow the money and follow the money that is going into the Seattle City Council, in which I had a discussion the other night where somebody from the opposition said that Seattle was going to do this tax anyway, right? And then they came to certain organizations in the community and said, we're going to do this tax. Actually, Tanika, the person that you were just, the person that you were just talking with was the person that I was talking with the other night. And she said that they were going to do it anyway, and they just asked where they would like to see some of that money go. And I would love to tell you more about that story in a moment.
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to rebut, and then we're going to go to Juan's question. You'll have an additional rebuttal too. You have 30 seconds.
I think it's interesting that you brought up that Got Green. Actually, we went to the city and was like, that's messed up. we are the communities that are most taxed. This money should go back into the communities, and only should go 50% or more should go to food programs that will impact people who make enough money to pay their super high rent, because the city's rent is high, that they don't have enough food to bring home a healthy food, right? And I think it's interesting that I said for once, big companies are contributing to our communities, but that would have been nicer if it weren't soda companies.
We got to give you time and 30 seconds, sir.
All right, so let's back up and clear things up just a little bit. I did not say that they were pumping money into our communities. I said that they were walking in the same direction that we were to get to a place of equity in this state, right? And just because somebody's walking on the same path as me doesn't mean that I'm going to get off the road and not go to my destination. And my destination is making sure that people of color and low-income people in this community can afford to live here. The next piece is that in no way, based off of the conversation that I had with the Tanika, who represents Doc Green, did she literally said in the debate that it was after the fact.
That is timed, and so, Mr. Cotto, your question.
Brandon, one of the liberties of having our federal government is it's given opportunities to states' rights. And states' rights pass down certain opportunities to smaller groups, and we've developed counties and local government structures. Yep. So my question to you is this. The city of Seattle and the city's council made a decision based on what they believe was scientific and evidential data about the role of sugar in childhood obesity, and they made the decision that we are going to protect. And then this is the argument. I'm not saying I support it or not, but they say we are going to protect our citizens. We're going to charge us tax, and we're going to use that tax to educate people about the issues going on in their food.
Absolutely.
And my question to you is this, and to me, this isn't as much about the food and beverage industries as much as it's about local government. Yeah. What is wrong with giving a local government, whether it's Tonasket, Yakima, Tacoma, Spokane, Renton, the opportunity to make that decision within their own community?
Absolutely. So systems of power usually tend to reflect the majority population in that area, right? So when you take a look at something like this tax and the fact that it disproportionately affects our communities, right? Did you know that they originally thought that they would raise $9 million off this tax? Guess how much they're projected to raise by the end of the year? $24 million, mostly off the backs of our communities and people who are not making enough money to make ends meet in this state, right? So I'm not saying that there shouldn't be an aspect of local control over these types of things, but what I'm saying is, as a representative of my community, as a representative of so many people who are struggling to make ends meet, that I have a responsibility to call it out when I see that there's a problem and that there's not enough equity at the table when we're having a conversation, especially when it affects our communities so economically as it has done and as has been proven.
I know that question was directed toward Brandon, but you have a minute also.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think there's one thing that you said that I wanted to touch on. Mm-hmm. We talked about like obesity in the community and how this tax is like coming from our pockets. Do you know why that is? I'll give you why. So communities of color see twice as many commercials from the soda companies as white people. That is a direct target on communities of color, on poor people to drink soda, get unhealthy, and continue to pay and put money in their pockets, because what they care about most is their money. And I don't care if they're walking on the same side as me. I don't want them anywhere near me if they're poisoning our children, people who look like me, people who look like us, people who look like many of these people in the room. And I think cities should have absolutely the right to pass taxes and keep their constituents healthy, because that is the point of government, is to continue to take care of the people that lives in their boundaries.
Yeah, 15 seconds.
Thanks. So the fact that the soda companies are passing this tax on to the distributors, and then those distributors are passing the tax on to consumers, shows that they are not hurting by this at any means, right? This is money coming out of our pockets. And then second, what I really want to point out here is that soda taxes have never worked, ever, not one single time, and we'll talk more about that.
15 seconds.
That's untrue. And this is, that's untrue. There's actually, I'm not even going to go into that.
But please do.
I don't have time for that. Anyway, listen, it's hurting us and not hurting them, but if every single city in the state gets a soda tax, guess who's hurting? Pepsi, Cola, everybody else who is sponsoring this
time.
Initiative.
Next question. Tracy.
This seems very similar to me as taxes on cigarettes and alcohol. They usually call them sin taxes, I think, sometimes. So you as consumers, don't we have the right to either continue to buy soda or not, or to perhaps buy something that might not have that tax that could potentially be healthier? Such, I don't know, is this tax on bottled water? I'm not quite sure or not, but couldn't we decide to not purchase sugary sodas, and then therefore that's why it would hurt the soda companies rather than not hurting individuals? Because wasn't it our own free will as to whether or not to consume those things?
Is that a
I guess.
question?
I mean, is this similar to a tax on like a?
So the question is, and I want to make sure the question is.
Is this similar to a tax on like cigarettes?
No, I understand the question. Yeah. Let me okay. Sorry. Let me answer that in a couple of ways. So first, when you're looking at a tax on something like cigarettes, right? That is referred to as a sin tax. The problem that I have with this particular measure is that when you compare it to a tax on something like cigarettes, those are things that are innately and clearly poisonous and dangerous, right? Now, I'm not saying that soda is good for you by any means, but it is a grocery item that we could all have access to. But what I want to go back to is the idea of following the money, right? So did you guys know that originally Starbucks lattes were going to bear the same tax, right? And then they got exempted. So when for me, when I try to square that, when I reconcile that shows me that they're not really concerned specifically about the health impacts on our communities, but rather because soda prices didn't rise that much. People still bought it.
I'm sorry, Brandon. Thank you. And 1 minute. Hold on.
I agree with you. We should absolutely have the opportunity to buy other things that are not poisonous for us. Actually, soda is very dangerous. It literally kills you, rots your teeth. Like, go to your doctor and be like, I drink soda every day. They're going to be like, oh no, how do I get you off of that? You know? And I think it's funny how it's always like the city is going to take your money. The city is putting that money back into food programs. It's going back into communities' pockets and onto their tables in the form of healthy foods, in the form of fruits and vegetables and things that make your lifespan longer, as opposed to soda that just basically kills everything inside of you, and that's not at all good for you. And the city government is going to, we as Got Green are going to make sure that that money goes to the people, and that's the role of community organizations, to organize the city, because sometimes they don't do what they're supposed to, and they don't do the things that they want, that they should. And it's my job. Our job at Got Green, our job of communities who are organized, to make sure that they do.
Okay, that's time. We're going to go into a rapid fire round here because I want to get a couple questions in. So I need to make sure our moderators are brief and concise and pointed, and let's have questions directed so that both of our guests answer. Rapid fire round. You're going to get a brief chance to answer these questions. Juan, you're up.
Once again, I really want you to explain this because my children go to a private school, wealthy parents.
Gotta make it quick.
It is.